Welcome back to Wrench Wench Worx. I'm Jenny, and I'm so glad you're joining me again. So the next few weeks are going to be a little crazy around the shop. I have a couple CTE customized trainings this week, and I just received in a cavity block for a mold that I'm going to be reworking for a client that's really in a time crunch and kind of in a pinch. So in order to get started on their mold block, I need to get Pulley ready for this. And I wish I could share the mold work with you, but unfortunately it's proprietary and confidential. But what I can share with you is what I'm going to be doing to get Pulley ready. You see, I was going ahead and checking him for lost motion and just making sure everything's running well. And we already know that Pulley needs a new spindle, which I will be sharing that with you guys. I did also notice it's got a little bit of leak on the power drawbar. Don't know if I'm going to have time to share that with you, but my good friend John Saunders from NYC CNC has some really good videos on both rebuilding a power drawbar as well as how to check your machine for lost motion and a gib adjustment. Now, when I was qualifying Pulley, I was really happy with the x-axis. Over 10 inches of travel, I only was losing about 2/10, and it was completely repeatable, so it's something that I can adjust for. However, in the y-axis, I was losing, and that's the short axis, I was losing anywhere from 8/10 to about 1 1/2. And it wasn't repeatable, which leads me to believe I either have a coupling that's slipping between the ball screw and the motor, or I might have a gib that's pinning on me, and that gib might be starved for oil or dry, or it may be a little tight. And so what I want to do is I'm going to be stripping off his table, taking a peek-see in there, and I kind of want to take you guys on this adventure because you're going to get to see stuff that you don't normally get to see, even on YouTube. Not a lot of people are crazy enough to strip down their machines. I live for it, and I've been doing this for a long time, so don't worry. I think I'm qualified. We'll find out, but no, I'm just kidding. We'll be fine. It's actually pretty simple stuff. But I wanted to give you guys a bit of a show and tell in this next couple videos. I might have to cut it up into multiple videos because otherwise it might be like a majorly long video. But so the plan for Pulley is we're going to put in a new spindle. I'm going to show you guys kind of how the oil lines are routed in a standard CNC machine, as well as we're going to knock the table off and I can show you all the little moving pieces underneath. Like I said, I'll try to get to the power drawbar rebuild. I did actually already put some footage in there, so you'll probably hear me say, hey, why don't we rebuild the drawbar while we're at it? And I went to Ace Hardware, got everything I could. Although I do have to wait for Mr. Amazon. I have a couple items that I really need. Some Belleville washers, as well as some nuts and ferrules for the oil line, and those will be coming in about 2 days. But in the meantime, I wanted to show you kind of under the covers with Pulley because I think it's just really fun and it's stuff that people don't get to see on a normal basis. And if you have any questions or anything you want to see or if something doesn't make sense, feel free to give me a shout. But I think I'm going to start with just kind of giving you a little peek into under the covers with Pulley here. So bear with me, and the video might be a little choppy. You'll probably notice it's probably going to be over a couple days while I'm taping and getting everything, because I'm going to be kind of juggling a couple balls over the next few weeks. But I hope you enjoy this, and let me know if you have any questions. So without further ado, let's start breaking down old Pulley here. Since I plan on replacing not only the spindle, but the drawbar and the collet as well, I figured, you know what? I did notice a little bit of leaking air from my power drawbar in the last week or two. So I figured, you know what? Since we're working on the bench anyway, I might as well swap out the whole kit and caboodle. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and label these pneumatic air lines with just some colored stickers. No need to really put which line goes where, because I'm just going to put the stickers on the line itself, snap a photo, and that way I know how to replumb everything back in when I get the newly built power drawbar set up in here. I am going to have to run to Ace. I know I'm going to need a larger snap ring pliers, and I might check and see if I can source some new Bellevue washers as well, because these do wear out after a while from the compression and the decompression. So let's get started. I've went ahead and removed that pneumatic stack for the power drawbar, and I've also removed the physical drawbar itself with the Bellevue washers just by pulling straight out. I think while I'm up here, I might as well take off the belt as well. You'll notice there's this little top hat part, so that is just there to retain the belt from slipping up and out of the way. And there's some set screws there, so what I'm going to go ahead is just going to dive in here. I'm going to loosen up these set screws. And it's probably got a bunch of crud in there. So the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just give her a little crack. Just kind of loosen up any rust or anything. Don't beat hard. And you notice I'm using a brass mallet. Brass is a good one for it. Softer metal. We're not damaging anything. We don't want to damage the threads. We're just going to, there you go, remove the top hat or the belt retainer. We're going to go ahead and knock the, there we go. I had already loosened this earlier, so if it looked way too easy, it was because I already loosened it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt it forward just a bit more than what this is going to allow it to do, because I know that that belt's going to want to catch on the casting. So let's see if we can get it. There's not a lot of clearance. There we go. So yeah, I just went ahead and removed the bolt so I could scoot it all the way forward. We've removed the belt. I figure since I'm going to Ace Hardware anyway, I like to support local business, and I want to see if I can get a V-groove belt like this one. So I will be back, and hopefully we can start rebuilding this guy. I am very excited to be sharing this bird's eye view with you. You'll probably notice I did go ahead and unbolt the spindle motor from the casting, and I scooched it out of the way the best I could. You'll probably notice there's not a ton of slack in these wire leads. So if you do have to remove your spindle motor for any reason, just be very mindful that they are relatively thin wires and they could shear or pinch off easy. So you do kind of want to be gentle as you're moving anything out of the way. What I wanted to show you from up top here, though, is you'll notice these 3 lines coming in. Those are the oil system for the Z-axes. And the reason there's 3 is one will go to the left side of the Z-axes ways, and the other one's on the right side of the ways, and then the third one goes to the Z-axes ball nut. And if we take a peek deep down into the casting, and I hope you can see it. It's a little hard to get in focus here, but you'll probably notice there is a manifold. And that manifold is where everything kind of splits off and feeds the 3 various areas of these Z-axis mechanicals. But I just think it's kind of cool, and I really hope to goodness gracious goshness that I can get away with just a simple flush for the Z-axes, because otherwise you'll notice we have some socket head cap screws in there. This casting appears to be in multiple sections, but we're going to have to unbolt it and separate it from the head casting if we do need to get in there, and I believe it might necessitate us then removing the spindle motor all the way. And I really don't want to have to do that because, again, we're on a bit of a time crunch, but I did want to show you guys this because I just absolutely love looking inside things that you don't normally get to see. So let's go on to the next part. Before I go ahead and take those socket head cap screws off that keep the spindle in place, I'm just going to go ahead and remove the pulley that's on top of this spindle. And I apologize for any bouncing. But you can see I just got a mini die bar. I did cheat and I did spray it a little bit with some PB Blaster prior to, just because I didn't want to fight with it. But you'll notice that it was keyed, and you can even see the keyway right here. And now if we take a look, now we should have plenty of room for that to just drop down in. The reason I wanted to take the pulley off was this was a little offset. So there was still some casting there, and I just really didn't want to fight with it. So I figured, you know what? The new spindle comes with the new pulley. So even if I would have damaged the aluminum pulley, I have one on my new spindle. So this just makes our lives easier. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a view of down below while we loosen up that spindle and drop her out. I just wanted to pop in and state for the record that once in a great while, I am unintentionally brilliant, and I'd been working on a wood project a few months ago and saved kind of all these little round cutoffs. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to use them for, but kept them out of the burn pile, and they came in really handy because this is almost the same diameter of the spindle nose. So I'm going to be resting my spindle nose on this stack of round cutouts. And moral of the story is we should all be hoarders. No, not really. We shouldn't all be hoarders, but just wanted to say that was handy. Like usually I throw everything out and I just thought, oh, these are kind of cool. Maybe I'll use them for something. And I didn't realize it would be for spindle replacement, but there you have it. We got that noisy old spindle removed, nice and easy lemon squeezy, went out like a champ. Smells really bad from years and years of old coolant and goodness knows getting up in that bore. But I have to say, I'm incredibly impressed. The bore that this seats in is incredibly clean and immaculate. And so I'm going to give you a little shot of that just so you can see what it looks like up inside the casting where the spindle actually sits. Because even though the casting's rough, you know, in the non-seating areas, where that spindle sits up inside, she's a beautiful bore, real nice finish, and I just kind of wanted to give you a peek-see. So let's take a peek. All right, let's take a look at the home of the new spindle and the old spindle, but look at that bore. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. I wasn't really quite sure what to expect, but she's fairly pristine. Really nice surface finish on there, a lot better than I had anticipated. But yeah, so the new spindle is gonna drop in the same way the old one dropped out. What I might do is I'm gonna go ahead and take some nice lint-free rags and some acetone and just kind of clean up all that stink and all that kind of residue. There is some residue in there, but I'm gonna clean it up, and then I'm probably gonna coat her with maybe some PB Blaster rust inhibitor, just so that the new spindle has a nice clean place to sit up in there where we're not going to see a ton of rust, and hopefully we can keep this surface looking pretty for many more years to come. Okay, because I'm kind of a big nerd, I want you guys to hear this before I put the new spindle in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the old spindle, bring it close to my mic, and I'm going to go ahead and spin that spindle just manually so you can kind of hear how gravelly those bearings were. And I'm going to take the new spindle and cradle it to my bosom and go ahead and turn that. So you can just kind of really hear the difference between a good spindle versus a bad spindle. And don't get me wrong, that first spindle was a very good spindle. It gave us many good years, but spindles are consumable. And so after a while, those bearings and the bearing races do just kind of wear and overheat and tend to go bad. So let me grab the old spindle. I'm hoping you guys can hear this. I'm going to keep it close to my mic and so that's the old spindle. And this is the beautiful new spindle. Notice the pulley is on the new spindle. I'm going to have to take it off so I can get her up inside, but nice, right? I'm super stoked, and I think Oli is going to absolutely love his new spindle. So let's drop her in, shall we? I am going to get this spindle ready. I'm going to go ahead and take these set screws out. I'm going to pull off the top hat. I'm going to pull out the spindle so I can shimmy this up into the bore in the casting. But a couple other notes while I'm doing that. So the face where the spindle sits and gets bolted to, I do like to take a nice Norton stone and I like to just kind of rub it, deburr it, make sure there's no burrs on any of those threaded holes, just so we have a good flush fit on that spindle. Other things, I did take and wipe that bore out real good at the acetone, and then I finished her up with a rust inhibitor. And the reason being, I mean, you do get, it's a pretty snug fit, but you can get some moisture and stuff in there. And I've seen folks in the past, many folks, that, you know, your machine does get exposed to a lot of different debris as well as a fair amount of moisture, and you can start getting rust in there, and I just hate dealing with rust. Other things that I do that maybe not everybody does, oh dear, and I might actually need something to knock this loose because this is pretty tight. So I'm going to go find myself a spanner wrench. Actually, let me try. Yeah, I think I'm going to go grab a spanner wrench, and I will be right back. I'm back, and I did find a couple spanner wrenches that were in the bottom of my tool bag, kind of floating around, and they do fit somewhat, but they are a little bit awkward. So the spindle, when you go to try to turn this, it actually wants to turn the entire spindle. And so you got to find a way to hold it stationary. And there is another spanner area down here, but it's really quite awkward when you're doing it solo. And so I don't know if you guys have ever played Twister by yourself before, but this is kind of what I ended up doing. I took just a regular standard crescent wrench, put it across the two flats on the top of the spindle here, tucked it under my armpit and my boob, and I have a chisel here. And what I did was position it in a way that I could hold it steady with my armpit and my boob and just give her a little tap here until she loosened up, and then she loosened right up. But it was just kind of some gentle taps. And now you can see the top hat is in fact loose, and I got her off. And hopefully we won't have too many problems here with the pulley either. I did give her a good PB blast, and not because she's rusty, just a little lubrication. Ah, look at that. So the pulley came right up. And so that leaves us with an insert that we can drop in the spindle. Now, prior to me trying to reef it off, I was going to tell you there's a couple of other things that I like to do, at least one or two other things. I know I mentioned stoning that face that the spindle nose sits on. The other thing that I like to do, and I don't know if it's necessary, but I do like to clean out the holes where the spindle is going to be mounted. And then I do like to take a little anti-seize and put that on. Reason being, it could be another 5 to 10 years before I need a new spindle. And gosh, by that point, I'm going to be a lady in my 50s, and I'm really going to hate the young whippersnapper me who is so careless as to not put anti-seize on there. We're still going to give her a good snug, but that way we don't have to worry about if we ever have to take the spindle out, like trying to reef on those socket head cap screws. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get the mill ready so we can kind of drop this bad boy in there and give Ole his new spindle, okay? Now it's time to get the belt on, and I'm going to actually just save myself a whole lot of trouble here. I'm going to put the belt on the spindle side first. That tends to work the best, at least for me. And so I'm going to try to loosen this up, get it under here, because there's not a lot of clearance between the casting. And what I might end up doing is just unbolting the casting completely. Hold on. The lighting's not so great up here, but typically it doesn't really need to be unless I'm working up here, which is not that frequently. So we're just kind of pulling stuff together here. So now I'm just going to scooch up the motor and make sure that that belt is sitting in the grooves. It is a V belt. All right, and that feels pretty good. So we'll go ahead and loosely put these guys in. I like to put that in before I put the pulley in, just because there's not a whole lot of room back behind this spindle. And it can be a bit of a pill. We'll go ahead and while I'm fumbling, so we'll get this on here, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to slip that pulley on and throw the belt. I'm going to put it in high range, which is the top of the two pulleys. That's generally where I like to run Ollie at. All right, that's pretty solid. And then we're just going to go ahead and throw this guy in, and we can tighten him in a little bit. So got plenty of movement. Yeah, so now what we're going to do is throw the pulley in, or try to. Oh, and remember that it's keyed. There's no real smooth way to do this, but I do like to have it on that spindle motor first. There we go. Okay, so now I have the belt slipping a little, but we'll get her scooched back up. I really sometimes wish my fingers were a heck of a lot smaller. Some of these are a little bit of a tight crunch, but we'll get that shoved up there. And all in all, once we get it tensioned, there we go. It should just seat in there. Now it does look, we have a little height difference there. Oh, there we go. That was my bad. So I actually didn't have it pushed down all the way, which is part of the reason I was kind of struggling there, but any closer to the problem and it would have bit me on the nose. So now I'm going to go ahead and just tension that and make sure that she's riding up okay, or that she's riding okay. And once I make sure that the alignment is satisfactory, then I'm going to go ahead. It is a new belt, so it's going to be a little stiff. I just want to make sure everything's riding okay. So once I kind of get it where I want it, then I'm going to go ahead and tighten that spindle down. And I am kicking myself for not wearing gloves. So I have a bit of a nickel sensitization, and therefore every time I touch NICs, I risk getting itchy and kind of blistery and gross. So that's pretty satisfactory to me. So now we got that good and tight. We're going to go ahead and drop this top hat back in here. And it does screw in. And then it's just secured with 3 set screws. And we are getting there. Then we'll also have to throw the drawbar in. Because I'm waiting on parts for my power drawbar rebuild, like I said, I'm going to probably have to do that at another time. But in the meantime, I will throw a link to John Saunders NYC of CNC link there. He does a really good job with his power drawbar surgery. And I think you guys will get a lot out of it. And to me, I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. If there's already good content out there, there's no reason for me to remake it. John also does a really good walkthrough on angular contact bearing adjustments as well as give adjustments, and how to do those measurements. So I figure I will also drop that link in there. He does a good, thorough job. Again, no need for me to stand there and yak at you, and there's already a really good video out there. So I will throw those in the description. And right now I'm just biding time while I'm getting these all snugged up. Okay, so now we have the pulley belt on. We have the spindle in there. It sounds good. It's not too rocky. I'm going to go ahead and grab that drawbar. And I will also grab the power drawbar, and we're going to worry more or less about just getting the new collet and the new drawbar in there. And we can always revisit power drawbar stuff later. So sorry, it's getting a little late. I'm a little rambly, but all right. So we're going to drop this guy in here. Remember that there's a little pin in the spindle. Once you feel it, you'll know. So right now, I'm just going to get it so it's holding it. And we'll go ahead and make the adjustment once we get the power drawbar in there. I'm going to go heft that up. I'm going to go wash my hands real quick, though, and I will be right back, and then we'll go through the drawbar. I'm going to give you a real quick rundown on what I'm doing next. And then I'm going to put it on time lapse just because I know that this video is already getting lengthier than I had planned. So I'm going to put the power drawbar back on. It's really simple. It's just a shoulder bolt and a linch pin. So I'm going to scooch it on here, and then I'm going to replumb in the 2 air lines. And remember, I have them color coded, so I know blue's on top, orange is on the bottom. And then I'm going to just make slight adjustments to the drawbar here. And you can see I have the Belleville washers on there. And I'm just going to put enough tension on there so it still holds it good and snug, but it's responsive when I hit the power drawbar release button. So that's what I'm going to do real quick, but I'm going to do it in time lapse, so it's a little faster, so you don't have to listen to me ramble my way through it. So let's do this. Pulley spindle's running right now. I'm just kind of wearing everything in, and it's purring like a kitten. Actually, it's not purring like a kitten. It is much, much quieter than the purring of a kitten. I can barely hear it. It's almost eerie because it almost sounds just like the slightest whisper. And I have not heard Oli sound like this in many years. And I know I was horrible about not getting a new spindle in there, but for the stuff I've been doing lately, I'm just going to run it till it breaks. But now with this mold job coming up, it's pretty important that I have a good running spindle in Oli. And so I feel like we've covered quite a bit, and this is going to be kind of a longer video, partly because it took me forever fumbling with that belt. Reminds me a bit of when I was in high school. And so I want to keep that part in, though, because I want you to know that even people who have experience working with machine tools on a regular basis do struggle sometimes. And if you do have a machine tool at home and you are doing your own maintenance, it is completely okay if you have issues where it's a little awkward or you get a little frustrated. That's incredibly normal for everybody. I am going to break up this video because I do want to cover rolling back the table on Oli, taking a look at the oil lines, doing an oil flush, as well as maybe discussing couplers, gibs, and ways, because I got to figure out what the heck's going on with that y-axis and why it's not repeating on me. So We're going to cover that on the next segment, and I don't think it's going to be super long before I roll that one out, because I will be working on that in the next day or two, because I do have to get Oli ready for this mold rebuild. So other things that I want to do in the future, just so you know, because I've been getting a lot of really good recommendations, and I've had people request seeing projects, and I have a ton of projects that I've done. And I do want to do more new projects with you, and I would love your feedback on that. So what I'd like to do is show you some of my previous projects. Unfortunately, they are formatted 90 degrees. So when I first started making videos, I was making them on TikTok, mostly because there's no pressure talking on TikTok, and I could still share the stuff that I love to do without talking. And then I realized after starting this channel, I really enjoy the community that has already started following me, reaching out. Your recommendations, your suggestions, your kind words have been amazing. And it really does mean a lot, especially for a girl who's typically working in the machine shop with her 2 dogs and Bob Ross. And so I do want to keep making these videos, and I just have to do them kind of between my paid work, and I would love your recommendations and suggestions. And if anybody knows how a good, simple way that isn't going to require me to spend 3 months learning like really fancy editing software, how to take portrait video and make it landscape without it being kind of awkward, let me know. And I could do some voiceover on it, kind of explain what I'm doing. But I do have some really fun and cool projects that I've done, including renovating my entire kitchen using that little Lena router. So kind of a fun project. I have other multiple projects, bar tops, that kind of stuff that I've done. A lot of woods, just because Lena is my biggest machine, and I love making big giant stuff. So feel free to reach out with any recommendations again. And if you like this, hit that like button. If you want to see more of me and you haven't already, go ahead and hit subscribe. And any feedback, recommendations, if you just want to say hi, say hi. I love to see the comments, and I do try to respond to everybody as quick as I can. Again, this isn't my full-time gig. I do this for fun and because I love to help people, and I want to help you guys make the stuff that you want to make. And I just appreciate y'all, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks, and have a great day. See you later. Bye.